Looking to make some healthier habits this holiday season? Make sure to check out our Moving Through Midlife community over on Facebook, as we are doing a Planksgiving event where we are doing daily plank workouts. We will be doing an advent for healthy, happy hips this holiday season, and then also have a sugar challenge, a 2-week sugar challenge that you might be interested in. Happy holidays!
Welcome to Raising Healthy Humans, where you as a busy mom can come each week to find information on health and wellness for your family. Enjoy experts discussing tips to help raise children through each phase of life. Gather current information on nutrition and wellness, and listen to Courtney, a personal trainer, health coach, movement specialist, and founder of FormFit, a community where she helps busy moms move more. Here, she provides you with movement and posture tips while sharing information you need to help raise healthy humans.
Today, I'm speaking with Jen, a gluten free health coach, who not only found out she had celiac, but that all 3 of her children did as well. She does not want families to live a life discouraged or feeling deprived without gluten, and is teaching you how to make gluten-free living a part of your life and helping you thrive while doing so. Today, she is speaking with us about things you can start to do in your own household to help make the change a little bit less stressful.
Yeah, Courtney, thank you so much for having me on. So I have been gluten-free for over 12 years now, and all 3 of my children are gluten-free due to celiac disease. And yeah, it was a really long journey to figure out what was wrong with myself as far as needing to be gluten-free. I had gone through, I can go back to high school very quickly to lying on the floor in the bathroom in pain, being rushed to the hospital in college, as a young mom, collapsing, just carrying a basket of laundry up the stairs. Just all these weird things would happen and no one could give me answers. So, oh, you're stressed. I'm like, I'm not stressed. This is not stress. This is from something I'm eating, I think. And they're like, oh, no. I'm like, no, I really do think this. Nobody would agree with me. And bloating, gas, neuropathy, canker sores. I could go down a whole big list of things that were happening and no answers. And any test that I was given didn't show anything either. So it was very frustrating, very debilitating. And then one day I had a friend who was a PR representative for a hospital. And she goes, oh my gosh, you've been complaining about this for years. I'm getting you in with this doctor. I'm like, okay. And he looked at me and said, yeah, you're clearly allergic to something. I'm going to send you to this dietitian. So I went to the dietitian and she said, oh yeah, gluten is definitely gluten we're going to look at. And I was like, what's gluten? Over 12 years ago, that was not a hot topic like it is today.
Right.
And, basically she handed me absolutely nothing against dietitians, but she wasn't the right person for me. She handed me a sheet of a list of breads that were gluten-free and told me to go down to Whole Foods and buy some quinoa and get some gluten-free bread. And I was like, well, okay, so what's gluten and what's quinoa? Right. So it was a bit crazy, but trying to understand what I was going through and learning about gluten. I was a teacher and a school administrator, so I'm very into researching and reading, and I started reading everything I could because no one around me could help me. And as I was reading, all these red flags came up for my children. So my son at the time was in 1st grade, and he was kind of small for his age, but I was a small person myself, so I never thought about that. And he was 2 years behind in dental, or he was behind in dental, but textbook celiac is 2 years behind in dental.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then my daughter was in 3rd grade, and she had every night, she's like, oh, mom, lay down with me. My belly hurts, and the doctor's like, she's stressed. I'm like, she's in 3rd grade. She's not stressed. No, so that was frustrating. And she had a lot of bloating. She had no energy. She would run around and come in after 5 or 10 minutes and want to lay on the couch. I'm like, what's wrong? She said, I'm so tired. I was a 3rd grade teacher. 3rd graders are not tired.
Right. No.
They have all that energy. I'm like, okay, something's going on. And then she started having these neurological tics where her hands would just fly out.
Oh.
Like her arms would just flick straight out, like for no reason. And she would be playing basketball and shoot and score and put her hands in her pockets. And the parents would be like, your daughter's so cool. And I'd be like, if you only knew, she's doing that to hold her hands still because she knows her arms are going to fly out.
Right.
And the top neurologist wanted us to put her on steroids and do all these things. I'm like, no, there's got to be a reason. And as I was studying and learning, I'm like, oh my gosh, my kids have celiac disease. Like they have all the flags, right? So I went to the pediatrician and I said, okay, I think they have celiac disease. When you put all these things together. And she said, oh, wow. She was going to a conference that weekend.
Okay.
She's like, she called me on her way home. She's like, yes, we're testing them. and they both had celiac disease. And like, I just think I never would have known my kids had celiac disease. And I don't know that anyone would have put those points together because all these things that happened were just things that happened and no one could give me answers, even the neurological tics. Now, my daughter's 21 now. When she went gluten-free, no more, she had all the energy back, right?
Okay.
She also, I didn't mention, she also had vitiligo going down her leg. That stopped spreading. So that's when you lose the pigment in your skin.
Yes, my daughter has that as well.
So
hers, we can talk about that, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it stopped in its tracks. It's even faded and it's never gone anywhere past. She has never had another neurological tic in her life. So she had a lot of changes. My son grew 4 inches when he stopped eating gluten. 4 inches in 1 year. The doctor's like, yeah, that was correct. So my 3rd guy, he was born into it. so the doctor's like, no, keep him gluten free. At 18 months, we tested him. He had to eat gluten, and that was a nightmare. We did not last very long. This happy-go-lucky kid turned into a constipated, back and forth, potty problems, and then belly bloating and bad behavior and not eating and not sleeping. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. The doctor's like, no, keep him gluten-free.
Wow. So celiac obviously ran in your family. Is that common that celiac runs in families, or?
It can run in families.
Okay.
Yes, it can run in families. If you, as a parent, have celiac disease, you can certainly look for your children. I mean, because you can also have silent celiac, but you can also have the genes for, it's very confusing because you can also have the genes for celiac and never actually have celiac. I mean, we all carry genes in our bodies for many different things. And depending on how we're living, are we turning up those genes to spark and ignite, or are we not,
Right.
Depending on our lifestyle.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting. My listeners know this, but you don't. My son, actually, it's pretty much all of us, myself and my 3 children, we all have a corn allergy, and we present similar to a gluten allergy, different, but similar. So it's interesting how these allergies present themselves and how much, like, once you identify something, how much you start to realize what all these different things that were, affecting, leading up to and affecting them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's interesting. You bring up the corn, because when I started my gluten-free journey, well, what's left to eat, right? You run into, there's nothing left to eat. And I ate corn chips and cornbread and corn muffins, and I was more sick starting. And of course, your body's detoxing gluten at the same time. So that was part of it. But I found out I had a corn allergy as well.
Really? Yeah. And I think it's more common than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that it would be added to the top 5 or 6 allergies.
Absolutely. Top 8 list. Yes,
Yeah.
we want it to be added. My youngest son is corn as well.
Uh-huh.
He and I are both, and we talk about that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's in everything. Okay, but I digress.
Yes. Well,
So-
I have to say that corn is harder. I mean, gluten-free living it can be easy and delicious. That is my thing. I can show people that, but corn is harder because it's in more things.
Yes.
So I have to plug that.
Yes. And that is the truth. It's in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So your family is now gluten-free.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do this? Because a lot of people have difficulty, they feel like it's a terrible sentence being told that they can't have gluten anymore.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle this, especially with children? Because children, I feel like my kids need more than just, they're snack heavy. I do try to make sure that they're eating nutrient rich foods and the proteins, fat, and fiber, but there's a lot of times, especially during growth spurts, they get hungry, and I feel like sometimes what they crave are those carbs.
Yeah.
How did you do that with 3 children growing?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And now my older 2 are in college, and they eat me out of house now.
Exactly. So how do you do that?
Like, where's all the food? It's already gone.
Yeah.
It's a great question. You really have to empower them. And I know that comes from my background as a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
but you really have to empower them and make them. I mean, we would sit at the dinner table and say, "We're eating our broccoli, we're so strong," and we'd make muscles and things, and you kind of go overboard when they're little about that, because, we would talk about. So when I started, I was gluten-free almost a year before my children were discovered to be celiac. So
Okay.
Before they were diagnosed. So they kind of watched me, right? So they kind of took it in that, why are you eating that, mommy? Why can't I eat? Can I eat that? Or why can't you eat this? And, they had a lot of questions. And of course you can taste this. Of course you can eat it. And they saw that my food was not gross and disgusting, which is what that mentality people have is, oh, gluten-free, that's gross, right?
Right.
Oh, it's going to be terrible. Well, yeah, 12 years ago, it was kind of terrible. It has come a very long way. There are more options out there. There are better products now, and you can find healthier products now, right? So that's come a long way. And of course, you want to push people to whole foods. But for your children, it's really important that they feel connected and feel accepted and not left out. I mean, but every parent wants that for their kids, right? Every parent wants their child to not be the one that's left out.
Right.
And my kids would come home and say, "Oh, today Jimmy had this in lunch. Can you make it gluten-free?" I'm like, "Sure, let's do that." So we would just keep making everything gluten-free that they wanted or that they wanted to try. So we would just create recipes, and as a family get in the kitchen, and it was really fun that way. But it helped them to feel not left out. And birthday parties. I've had so many parents say, "Well, we can't go to birthday parties anymore because my son's gluten-free." I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" Wait a minute. Let's back up there. And they're like, "Well, he can't have anything and he just feels so bad." And this is where you come in and you say, "Wow, it's going to be so much fun at Carter's birthday this weekend. They're going to the bouncy house and you get to bounce." And you really focus on those activities that are not the food, right?
Right.
And then you call the parent and you say, "Hey, what are you serving at your birthday party?"
Okay.
And I find out what they're serving. I pack everything gluten-free, make my children's favorite cupcake, and send it along. And they have their food, they have their cupcake, they're eating relatively what all the other kids are eating. They're participating and still doing all the fun stuff. They're with their friends, but they're eating something that's safe for them, right? And, even when they come home and say, "Oh, his cake was so cool. It was, Spider-Man or whatever." And you're like, "Yeah, but you had such a good one, right? And he's, oh, yeah, Mommy, mine was so good. You know, everyone wanted to try mine or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, see, I said, and you're healthy because of that. That keeps
Right.
you healthy. Oh, I know, Mommy. You know, so the more we did that, the more pre-planning you can do,
Right.
the more you set them up for success, whether
Okay.
that's with their friends or with their school. You know, talk to the school. So many schools are getting away from food in the classrooms,
Right.
which parents complain about, but I love because it helps them not feel left out when you do
Right.
have allergies. But you know, planning ahead, like when my little ones, when they were in preschool, I just brought in a tub of gluten-free muffins. So whenever someone had a birthday and the parent sent something in, my child had a gluten-free muffin in the freezer the teacher could take out
Hmm.
and give them that day. So they were never left out, right?
Right.
So planning ahead really is helpful. And, you know, talking to other parents to see what they're serving or whatever at parties or get-togethers or even play dates.
Right. And that's, I was going to ask you about that. Like, how do you handle that? Because I would think that would be very discouraging for a lot of children who are gluten free going for the, birthday cake and not being able to participate with that. So that's a great idea to bring your own. Now,
Mhm.
with holidays and stuff, is that the similar situation? I mean, if you're going to different events, are you asking people what they're going to have on hand for food and bringing your own? Is that
Yeah. Holidays, the same thing. I remember, you know, we had come so far with our gluten-free life, and my little guy, my youngest, he was so he's 10 now. So about 5 years ago, it was in kindergarten, he was invited to a gingerbread making house. And I was like, oh, and so in my mind, I'm thinking I'll just get all my gingerbread stuff together for him and whatnot. And it was being held at a country club, and you were not allowed to bring in any other food. And I was like, oh gosh. And it was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, he can't do this. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? He gets it, but what if he doesn't? And then I was like, wait a minute. No, this is not what I believe. Because if I tell him he can't go, I'm basically telling him celiac is holding him back.
mm, mhm,
And your allergy is speaking up that you can't do this. And I don't want my kids to have that message. You know, I don't want them to have that message. So he went. We talked about it beforehand about not touching, you know, not putting the frosting in your mouth. And you know, you could certainly make the cake, you could make your gingerbread house and have a blast and look at all your fun friends you're going to be with. He went, he had so much fun. He came home and told so many stories about the kids squirting the frosting in their mouths, and he thought that was hilarious. He built his house, and as soon as he was done with it, he walked over to a friend and said, I made this for you.
oh,
And I
that's
was like,
sweet.
wow, you know, so he knew we couldn't have it. So he's like, this is for you. And he said, I just had so much fun. Now, if I kept him home, you know, what
Right.
message, again, what message, we have to think about what message are you giving? Because
Mhm.
when people come up to you and say, oh, you poor thing, you're gluten-free. Oh, you poor thing, you're corn-free or dairy-free. And it's like, I'm not a poor thing because of this, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And you're told that a lot. So you have to know how to handle that.
Right,
You
right.
know, and with kids, it's like, oh, you can't come, and you don't want them to hold on to that message. You want to teach them that no, you can do this. We're going to find it gluten-free, or we're going to have something else for you to do, and you're not going to miss out. You know, so for holidays, I when we went gluten-free, I asked my parents for all of the recipes, all of the family recipes, because what are the holidays? The holidays are around food,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And those foods, those dishes, like my mom's creamed onions and my dad's stuffing, right? That you
Mhm.
get once a year, they have this great significance behind them.
Mhm.
And you only have them at your table. I mean, I'm sure you felt it just eating maybe at your partner or spouse's table, you know, going to someone else's house for the first time for the holidays, and you're like, this is not what I eat,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. No,
and how
definitely.
it's like, that's not what I eat. Where are my favorite food, you know, and you don't want to feel like that the rest of your life. And when we're gluten-free for the rest of our lives, you know.
Right, right.
So we took all of their recipes and we tweaked them and we made them all gluten-free. And everyone comes to our house. Everything is gluten-free, dairy-free, corn-free. nobody knows the difference because it's
Okay.
so good. So you find those recipes. If you're going to someone else's house, you bring them with you, but I plan ahead.
Okay. Now, you make this sound so easy. I
It's
assume you
not
must be someone who enjoys cooking or baking, that type.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that does help a bit, I have
Yeah.
to say.
So what do you recommend for that family that's really struggling with recreating? Like, are there certain flours you recommend people try, like the basic? Because I know I've worked with different flours and I have a couple of my favorites, but you have to change the recipe a fair amount to go along with whether it be almond flour, coconut flour, whatever it is. Do you have something that you recommend people use for flours?
Yeah, you brought up a good point. Every flour is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like my biggest pet peeve about gluten-free baking. And it's something I love to teach people to do because of that. I grew up baking with my mom, and then as a teenager, and then with my kids, and then gluten-free. It's like, oh my gosh, we have to figure this out because it was so much a part of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I was a teacher that made everybody a big plate of different, like 20 different cookies every year. Like, I can't give that up. That's me. That's like what I do.
Right.
So finding how to be gluten-free, and you go on Pinterest and you get a recipe and it says 2 cups of gluten-free flour.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hello, that doesn't work because exactly coconut flour is not going to work with 2 cups coconut flour.
Right.
Almond flour or brown rice flour or millet flour, they're all going to give you a different result.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say you've got to play around. You can try a lot of the mixes that are out there. But again, the mixes are not equal either because some have added dairy powder to them. Some have corn in them.
Mm-hmm.
Some will have, because of our gluten, dairy, and corn allergy, there are a lot we can't use at all because
Right.
one of those things is in almost all of them.
Yes.
But some of the basics, I would start with a basic flour like Bob's Red Mill to start with, just to get into the habit of that. My favorite thing is finding the exact flours that work.
Right.
I
Right.
want to know what's going to be the best. Is it going to be organic brown rice flour and millet flour, tapioca flour? That's a good combination that I love to use.
Okay.
I find it really yields a good cookie or a good muffin. But every one of my recipes were a little bit different in what flours we use because of that, because I want the best one.
Right. Right.
So experiment,
Okay.
start with one and experiment is really what I tell my clients. Yeah.
Okay. When you were talking about your children and not having them feel left out, it made me think of my oldest, who is allergic to not only corn, but peanuts as well.
Yeah.
And I notice he doesn't feel left out, but there are a lot of things that he is very uncomfortable when he goes to a friend's house.
Mhm.
He won't eat certain things. Do you have any recommendations for families, especially like as their kids are getting older and spending the night out at people's house? I mean, are you then making a whole meal for them to go spend the night? How did you work with that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And a peanut allergy is a whole different story from a gluten allergy.
Right.
Because you can eat gluten and yes, you're going to be sick. It just presents in a different way, where the peanut allergy is a very scary allergy because you can have the whole anaphylactic and a much, more emergent reaction, right?
Right.
So
Right.
yes, those are 2 different apples and oranges, right?
Right. Right.
But so for gluten allergy that I can speak to, I don't want to speak to the peanut allergy because I don't live that.
Right. Right.
But I can understand his feeling that way. My older 2 were very very aware as well when they'd go to friends' houses, and you'd have the parents who would bake the gluten-free brownies, right? They know my daughter's coming over, so they made her gluten-free brownies, and I'd be like, oh, that's so nice, but we really appreciate that, but they don't understand that if they are not gluten-free, what they just baked in, the bowls they used, the whisks that they used, the pan that they used, the oven they used could all cause cross-contamination, and my child could still be sick.
Oh my goodness.
So I would just always say, thank you so much. It's so, so, so nice. But because of that, and your best friends start learning with you, right?
Right.
The families that you really are with all the time, your family members, and then your close friends, they start understanding and learning and living it with you, so that when you are together with them, I would have friends come over. Okay, so I made this dip and this is exactly what I put in it. Here are all the labels I use. I'd be like, okay, thank you. We can eat this, guys. It's funny. And then when you find other families who are gluten-free, I remember one of the first families, we went to their house and they were also gluten-free. The drive home just cracked me up because the kids were like, that was so cool to be at someone else's house that's gluten-free. And we didn't have to think about what we were eating. And I was like, wow, that's a great observation.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just felt like they get it. We could eat with them. And I didn't feel like I had to ask 100 questions, because you have the kids who will not ask the questions, and you have the kids who will ask 100 questions, right? I mean, my littlest, we would trick or treat when he was 3, and he would say, trick or treat, do you have anything gluten-free? And is it corn-free? I'd be like, oh my, okay, let's just take the candy. So I always had treats at home that they could have. So we always swapped out. So that is a little easier. But no, it can be, we make it hard. And I think planning ahead and thinking ahead and just, I don't know, we really make it hard. And I know I made it hard for myself at the beginning. And after we kind of got things down, I was like, that did not need to be
right
as hard as it was. And that's kind of why I do what I do now, because I stayed home with my children because we had moved a bit. And then I was ready to go back to teaching. And my husband works a lot. So I knew if I was going to work, I'm like, well, this is going to burn me out pretty quickly. And my friends were like, you need to teach people about what you're doing because you've come so far with that. And I was like, you know what? That's right. You're right. So I started helping other families learn how to live gluten-free, easy and delicious, right?
Right.
So when you have the right tools and the right steps and the right strategies, it does become easy. And planning ahead and getting in your own kitchen are also helpful. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what happens if someone's not diagnosed as celiac? Is there any reason as to why we might want to still go gluten-free?
Absolutely. Yes. If you've ever heard of Dr. Tom O'Brien, he is a functional medicine doctor. He's done a lot of research, and he's a top doctor in gluten, and he does a lot of brain, a lot with Alzheimer's. But he even says nobody digests gluten anymore. Now, I'm not here to say that nobody should eat gluten anymore, and I don't preach that, but I love to hear him say that because so many people eat and they're sick. And I mean, when I look at that, it's like, we're supposed to eat and feel good. We are not supposed to eat and have such a bellyache and bloating and gas every time we eat. Right? I mean, yes, you should have a little bit of that every so often, but you should not be having that all the time and feeling like crap after you eat all the time.
Right.
And we don't connect those dots, and until you have a food allergy in your household or someone then you think about that, right? I mean, case in point, we ordered a pizza this week and we don't order out a whole lot. There is this one gluten-free, there's this one place, Jules Pizza, and they have celiac in their family. So that they understand it, right? So we ordered a pizza, gluten-free, corn-free, dairy-free. I went over it again and again with the girl, and we've ordered from there before, so they kind of know us, but the pizza arrived and okay, I opened the box.
Oh no.
The first thing I said to my husband was, did you not look at the pizza? It was like they took a can of corn and dumped it over the entire pizza. So instead of corn-free, they added corn to it. And I was like, are you kidding me? And my son was like, why would they do that? And we had the whole conversation of what we just said. when people don't understand an allergy or even think about it, it doesn't mean anything to them. It's like my husband took the pizza back. They made us a new one. We took the pizza back and she said, we didn't need that back. And he said, you don't understand. We can't even have it in our house.
Right.
Like, I didn't even want to throw it out in my garbage can. Right. I mean, I did not want that corn. I don't want to see corn. I don't want to. Yeah. So I said, wow. But you have to remember, and when you're starting your allergy journey, whether it's corn, whether it's gluten, you have to remember, like, people get so mad that their family doesn't get it. They get so mad that their kids don't get it. They just don't get it. I can't have those crumbs on the counter. Like, okay, but did you get it before you started?
Right.
Like, we forget that little piece, right?
Right.
And you have to bring them along the journey, right? So they understand what you're going through and why it's so important that you have to be gluten-free. 100%, right?
Right.
So we got way off on your tangent of should everybody gluten-free. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But yeah, so if you can test negative for celiac disease. And I've had so many people say, well, I don't have celiac disease, so I don't have to give up gluten. I'm like, but how do you feel? Well, I'm always bloated and I'm gassy and I feel terrible. And I'm like, okay, so let's take gluten out for a little while and see how you feel. Well, I feel amazing, but I don't have celiac. No. But you can have non-celiac gluten intolerance. And it's a real thing.
Yes.
And yes, you feel terrible. And yes, gluten is attacking your body and it's telling you, stop eating me.
Right.
You know?
So, well, and you keep mentioning this, the bloating, the gas, the belly aches, but there are other signs. I mean, you said the tics, and do you have a few different signs that people might want to look out for that this might mean that you have some gluten intolerances?
Absolutely. And you know, I think it's an average still of 10 years before somebody's actually diagnosed to be celiac. And it could be longer if you're gluten intolerant because we don't key into the symptoms, right? Okay. And the list of symptoms is so incredibly long of what can be. We automatically think digestive issues. And some people are totally fine with their digestion, but they have tics or they have migraines or headaches, or they have neuropathy where you get the numbing of your hands or your feet. Okay. You can have rashes, canker sores. There's so many different things that can happen, you know. But I think the key point is being mindful of your body, right? And when you're experiencing, well, gosh, I have a migraine every day. Like, what's going on with that? Okay, we have a migraine, but let's stop and think, what's triggering that, right? And people just say, I have a migraine, I'm going to take this to get rid of it. Well, let's back up. What's triggering it? What's causing that? Right. You know, so look at the root cause of it instead of covering it up with other medications and things, because that's just going to push you down the road into the wrong direction, right? Right. Yeah. Okay. The list of symptoms can be very, very long. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed we don't usually, well, my children have pizza, but I don't usually eat pizza. And I had it one night, and then I had a couple of things over the weekend that also contained flour. And I'm dealing with these little sore spots on me, like itchy. And I know it's because I've had too much gluten in my diet this weekend, and I've now got these things on my hands. So it's very interesting. And I would not say, I mean, obviously there's some sort of gluten intolerance. I can tell. Yes. So I don't eat it often, but I do still occasionally have it. And honestly, if I have one piece of pizza when we go out or something, that doesn't usually bother me. It's when you start stacking, you know, this and then this and then this on top of one another that it starts to really affect you. And I think what you said was really key. And that's one thing, if I do nothing else with these podcasts, is trying to really express how important it is for us to listen to our bodies. Yes. They give us clues. Yes. Yes. And I feel like it takes a while for people because we're so busy in life and we're not seeing all these little signs. And it takes years, like you said, years of it stacking up and stacking up. And then finally your body is like, no more. And that's when the inflammation really starts to pile on and affect people.
Absolutely. And that's how I felt like when I look back on my journey, that's how I kind of see how things went. It's like, all right, so I was in college and I did okay, I did okay, I did okay. And then it was like, oh, that pain, that horrible pain that just killed me. And then I was fine for a little while. And then it seemed like it just built up and built up and built up. And then it was like you hit another wall. And it was like you exactly what you said. Your body's like, that's it. It's enough. Stop.
Right.
Just stop and take care of yourself. And we don't always look at that because that's not, when we go to the doctor, when you don't feel good, that's not the first thing they're going to ask you. Right. You're going to say, okay, here's a prescription, so you're thinking, okay, it's a sinus infection or it's this. And it's not, it's that gluten is really bothering you, or corn or whatever it is.
Right.
You really have to listen. I had doctors tell me, stop, you're stressing yourself out by writing down what you're eating and how you're feeling. I'm like, no, I'm being a detective and it's told me exactly what's wrong with me.
Yes. And that's key. We need to be detectives for our own body.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because we should be all feeling good all the time. I mean, for most of the time.
Most of the time we should feel good. We should wake up. We should have energy. We should feel good. And because you're getting older, you should not be losing your memory because you're getting older.
Right.
It's people always say, oh, I'm tired because I'm getting older. I'm like, no, that's not the reason.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, that's not the reason. So yeah, to change that thought process,
Right.
For sure.
Okay. Now, can you tell me about what you offer you have like a program that you offer? Okay.
Yes. So
tell me a little bit about that.
I work with people either one-on-one or in groups. So I have one-on-one. So I love to work one-on-one because everybody comes in a different place, right?
Right.
I mean, you meet people and they're either just beginning their journey, they've been gluten-free for a while and they're still not getting it, or they've been gluten-free for a long time and they're so stuck because they think it sucks, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, that's why you're having a hard time, because every day you go through this and you think it's terrible. So you have to turn that around. You have to turn that message around. I mean, the mind piece of having a food allergy or an intolerance or celiac disease is huge because it makes or breaks how you live this life. Because if you're on board with it, you're like, okay, this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. And you're like, oh my God, I'm going to give all this up forever. Oh my goodness. That mindset kills you. So I like to work on that a lot with clients because it's such an important piece. But, everybody comes from a different space. So I have one-on-one work with like 3 months to 6 month programs. And then I also have a gluten-free beginners course where I have it where you go through the modules on your own for a great foundation, like learning what foods are safe and the foundation that you need. You have what foods are safe and reading labels and cross-contamination and where is that hidden gluten, because that always is what gets us, right? And, setting up your home and getting your family on board. So you have a good foundation. And then I have a gluten-free diet to lifestyle course that I do. And that is taking that foundation and teaching you how to sustain your gluten-free life. So some of what we touched upon with how do you get through the holidays and parties? Like, how does that even work, right? How do you get through your day-to-day? I mean, if you go to the dentist, the orthodontist, they use gluten to glue those braces on your teeth. Okay. There are things that we don't even think about that we go through our day with, right?
So, oh my goodness, I did not know that. That's crazy.
Even the retainer has gluten in it too. So you don't know these things until you know these things, but just going through setting up your home, how you set up your home, how you set up your kitchen, getting your family on board, vacation, how do you take a vacation? So it's all of that. And it's funny because I think the biggest thing that clients come back and say to me is that I didn't know I had to know.
Yeah.
No idea I had to know that. So it's that, and those are the pieces that, you live and learn that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're cooking and you're changing your dishes to be gluten free, it's those little tweaks and just one little tweak or one little strategy that you learn that makes such a huge difference. Little steps make such a big impact, and moving them from wherever they are to a healthier lifestyle,
Right.
is so important. So yeah.
Okay. And do you have recipes or anything that you are able to share with the listeners?
I absolutely do.
Okay.
I love to do cooking classes. I do them
Oh, okay.
often,
Okay.
which is I could just do cooking classes forever because they're so much fun. And baking. I love to teach people how to bake gluten free, and I do have a baking course as well. It's just a little mini course, but it's great to get you started.
Okay.
Because of that overwhelm. You go to the store and you see all those flours, you're like, oh my gosh, really? I mean, it's awesome because what did we use growing up? One flour.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You go gluten free and there's like 200, and it's like, which one do I use?
Right.
But yes, I have recipes on my website at Gluten Free Marcks the Spot. We have all kinds of recipes that are all I call them all easy and delicious because I only put them up there if they're family approved.
Okay.
But yeah, we have a lot there that they can go and check out.
Okay. And question, and you may not do this, but as you were speaking, I thought, I wonder if she does this. When you work with clients one-on-one, do you help with, like, say they have a few things that they really love that have gluten in them? Do you help them to redesign those recipes to work for them? You do? Okay.
I love doing that.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle, and finding the right ingredients. And sometimes it doesn't come out that first time.
Right.
I mean, we took a bit to get to my parents, all their holiday meals. It took us a bit to find those little tweaks, but you try one flour, ooh, not so good. You try another flour, ooh, that's really good. Like gravy, take gravy, for instance. Making a gravy, you can do it. There are 100 flours to use. Of course, we're not going to use corn flour or
right
that everybody else is going to use. So finding the one like, okay, this one's too gritty. And this one's too gummy. And this one, ooh, this has an awful aftertaste. So you go through the whole process of trying different things. And here's a good tip. Sweet white rice flour makes the best gravy because it's not gritty, it's not gooey, there's no aftertaste, it still thickens your gravy, and it's awesome. I use that for all my cream sauces, anything like that. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, thank you for that. All right. Is there anything else you want to make sure our listeners know about either something that you offer or the Gluten Free Living?
Just that if you need to live gluten free, well, if you have celiac disease, it has to be 100% gluten free all the time.
Right.
If you have gluten intolerance, yes, you have to be 100%. So many people think, but it's just an intolerance. That's okay. Why do you want to upset your body, your belly, and be sick for a few days just to eat that piece of cake when you can make a delicious gluten-free cake that's going to be just as good or better, right?
Right.
So really understanding and working on the mindset is really, really, really important. But going in that direction, just knowing you have to be 100% gluten-free, and it is for your whole life. So get it down and learn the steps and strategies and tools. And I'm happy to help you with that. But yeah, so I mean, I don't want people to struggle like I did.
Right.
I really struggled to figure this out, and there wasn't a need for that, right? If someone was there to show me the ropes and hold my hand and teach me how to do that and get in my kitchen and tweak my recipes and do that with me, it would have made all the difference in the world, which is why I'm doing what I do. But yes, I do have a Facebook group for gluten-free moms.
Okay.
Change your plate to change your life. And in there, we have guest experts that talk, and I do lots of challenges and recipes, and we just have a lot of fun. So that's a great place for people to come and join us and get to know our community and really start creating a gluten-free lifestyle that you love. So you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Very important. Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time out today.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. I hope you found this information valuable and hope that you are able to immediately use some of the information that was provided today. Make sure to check out the show notes for all the links that we discussed. If you are a busy mom who is looking for a community where you can practice living a healthier life, I would love for you to join us over in our Form Fit community on Facebook. You are also welcome to join our membership for just $15 the first month to receive access to our 30 days of hormonal health, quick workouts you can do in less than 10 minutes each day, foam rolling exercises, meal plans, and accountability calls. You can head to formfitnaples.com/join, and that will provide you with access to our community and our membership portal for 30 days. If you decide at that point you want to cancel, you are welcome to, or you can continue on for just $29 a month. Now, go out and enjoy your day while practicing small, healthy choices that will make lasting changes.